Welcome to Mine Explorers, episode 53 with Jack Kellner from CanaryWaves and Regeneration. Welcome,
How's it
Jack.
going, guys?
Yeah.
Good to be on Mine Explorers, one of my favorite and most unique formats for an industry podcast. I've been following for a while, and we've been
Cool.
connected for a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we got connected through friends of Ski Mountain mining history.
That's right.
Of
And
course.
definitely we
Yes.
want to get Sally on sometime, but we'll have to like drive up and set
Dude,
up at
Sally's
her
a
place.
legend. That would
Yeah.
be a great show.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
the only show we'll have to edit for swearing.
Yeah, it's on my list for sure. Should be great.
I had
But
to edit this one for swearing. I got my Chicago mouth going. So,
there you go.
although it's
I've,
Monday, so I'm kind of on my game. Maybe I'll be behaved.
there you go. Yeah, so we met through that. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's a great local nonprofit in Park City, Utah that's dedicated to preserving the mining structures that are on all the ski hills and around town. They've raised millions of dollars and preserved several structures now. I mean, I'd say probably a dozen, really, if you include everything. So,
Yep.
great group. We just finished stabilizing the Silver King
Yep.
mill building, or they're the head frame building this last year. New roof, some new siding, cleaned it up.
They're working
And
on the
then
Thanes
stabilizing the
tunnel.
Thanes head frame and
Yep.
building. So
I just
great
skied by
group.
the mill building the other day. It looks great.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. They
Yeah,
took the
it's
roof
awesome.
off, fixed underneath it, and then put the old rusty roof back on top. But it's in much better shape now. So
Yeah, oh, that's great. That's awesome.
yeah, so we met through that, and then but you're working on a lot of cool stuff and slinging those memes on LinkedIn, and so it's great having you on.
Yeah, yeah. The memes are becoming my claim to fame. I should probably keep doing that until I get in trouble. Um, I'm doing a bunch of different stuff. So technically I'm a Rio Tinto employee, so all of my opinions are my own. They don't reflect Rio Tinto.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm seconded over to Regeneration, as you mentioned, Stuart. And Regeneration is focused on um, tailings and mine waste reprocessing and using some different approaches and some different partnerships to kind of attack that problem in a new way. So I'll actually be presenting some of the ways we do that at SME, which is
Oh,
coming up
fantastic.
um, in a
Excellent.
couple of weeks here. Yeah, we've got an extended abstract and then a talk we'll be giving about a lot of tailings reprocessing is thought to be like, hey, we need technological innovation to go after these metals and these types of tailings and this geochemical environment, whatever it is. But there's a lot of other innovations around like how you structure the project, the commercial terms, the potential liabilities that exist, and there's some innovative approaches there that kind of go beyond the straight technical that can still make a project super super viable. So
Yeah.
Regeneration has done a really good job to
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think
flesh
it's
that out.
really, really interesting. And it's something I'd never thought about before. Like people think about the economics of reprocessing tailings and they're like, we need to get our costs down. But regeneration has some interesting things where they're like, we can create a kind of a branded product that
Hmm.
has a green component to it that people will pay a little bit more for. And so that's another lever to change the economics where, sure, if you can process cheaper, I mean, I'm sure you guys are always looking at that and looking at innovation, but through partnerships, if you can sell for a little bit more and also clean up the environment and stuff, like there's other benefits. I think it's a really cool model.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that was kind of the impetus for how Regeneration was started, and like some of those early partners like Apple and Missouri Jewelry, like they wanted to tell that story to their customers and they were willing to pay a premium for some of those metals or are. And so, yeah, that is one of the levers. Another that we've looked at extensively is like, who are we working with? Like, who's the operating partner and who holds the liability potentially? And
Yeah.
is there an opportunity to work with regulators, work with the operating partner to see, hey, given the current conditions and the current liability, what would significant improvement look like? And how could that reduce potential liabilities going forward, so that your added value for the project is not just the value of the metals, it's also the value associated with reducing liabilities for whoever the liability holder is. So that's another kind of innovative lever that we're pulling at certain projects. It doesn't work everywhere, and you got to be really careful about how you approach those conversations, and make sure that your regulators and the public and everybody's like really on board and really informed, and it's transparent. But it can be a really effective tool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Now, are you working like all over the world, I would assume?
Yeah, like we take on a project portfolio, and I'm not in the project evaluate. We have like kind of a pipeline, right, where certain professionals within Regeneration are evaluating, like, should we go after this? But yeah, we will accept potential projects from all over the world. Primarily our first couple of projects have kind of manifested themselves in North America, because that's kind of where the team is. So you hear about these projects and you have relationships already established or whatever it is. But we're agnostic to project location. Generally speaking, we're starting to stand up some good relationships and potential projects in Australia. We just had a team member come back from a trip out that way.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine anywhere where you're in a jurisdiction that's ESG sensitive, they're going to be more interested, and then eventually it'll spread as more and more. I mean, like, it's always kind of been the general, like, go to China because they could just mine everything cheaper, faster, whatever, because they have lower standards. But now, like, they're putting serious effort into environmental issues and things like that. And so, like, that market, initially, I'd see like North America being big, Europe being big, Australia being big, and then spreading from there, because there's mining liabilities and legacy issues and tailings in every country in the world, basically. So,
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's the challenge is like trying to have policy keep up with that approach, right? That innovative approach, right? So we see like there are certain jurisdictions that are, the regulator might be carrying the liability associated with a site, and they're very open and keen to have help in reducing that liability, for example. But then there are other jurisdictions, like here in the United States, where like you've got CERCLA, you've got like all this policy in place that's kind of not necessarily hindering environmental protection, but it is perhaps hindering like alternative approaches like the one Regeneration is pursuing. And so Regeneration has taken a strong position in like helping advance those policy discussions. So like we're very involved in like the Good Samaritan Mining Act, for example, and some of the work around that. So we've got a couple of projects that are focused on that. And hey, how can this approach maybe start to move the conversation forward a little bit?
Yeah, the Good Samaritan. I was going to mention that, and it makes a lot of sense for Regeneration to be involved in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's for sure opens the door to being able to actually go in and economically clean up these things by industry, and not relying on NGOs or government agencies to do it. But then it provides, potential economic incentive, which is fantastic, because with what you guys are doing, partnering with somebody who can actually come in and do that work is awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces to Regeneration. We got some cool projects coming down the pipe. So yeah, for listeners that are going to be at SME, I'll be there kind of talking through some of that in more detail, and we'll use the project as a case study. So pretty fun.
Cool.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can get into your talk. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Yeah, I'll send you guys a link, or maybe I'll post on LinkedIn. I forget the name of the symposium, but I'll grab it and throw the title on there and everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fun. So Jack, tell us how you got into the mining industry. Like, what really piqued your interest when you were, a young kid? Like, did you think that you would get into this industry, or did it like kind of just by happenstance?
No, yeah, it's always a stumbling, like I stumbled into it type of story. Like I'm actually from Chicago. Like I'm a city boy. And I went to university in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, played college football for the University of St. Thomas, go Tommies.
Oh, cool.
And at the time when I was in university, I was like, oh, biology, that'd be great. Like maybe I could do medical like my brother or whatever. And St. Thomas has a really good study abroad program. And in Minnesota, they have January term, so you can like take a January term trip somewhere else, like Costa Rica for biology. That sounds
That's
great.
a
Get out
great
of the
time
Minnesota
if you're in
winter.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Go to Costa Rica. And I remember signing up for that, and so did everybody else and their grandma.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get in. And the next best thing was geology of the Southwest United States.
Oh yeah.
Down in Nevada and Vegas.
Oh,
and
cool. Okay.
So I was like, all right, that's like a nice consolation prize. Let's just do that. And my university and the geology department specifically is like awesome geology department, has some great professors doing great research at a non-research university. And they're developing some really good geologists because they, in my opinion, because they put 2 field camps together, and the primary field camp is the one for like freshmen and sophomores. So they hook kids into the major early and they keep them there. And then they do another one, later on, more traditional geology program. But yeah, I went on that program early days and was like immediately hooked with geology, went back to that field camp multiple times, and got I think it was environmental geology was my degree. And I got kicked out into the workforce and did a lot of environmental consulting, drilling, limited site investigations, like looking at plumes and stuff like this. It was really common at the time to go into that as a geology major that wasn't like at a mining school. And then I recall I was out doing like some work on fires, the Sonoma County fires in California. I was like 17, I think. And I got a call from some mine site in the Twin Cities that wanted an environmental person for compliance. And I was like, yeah, this is like my 6th month on the road. Like I haven't been home in forever. Like it's maybe time to like go home and do something a little bit more stable instead of running around for these consulting firms, digging up wells and stuff like this. So, yeah, started at a small, like regionally focused crushed limestone quarry, quite large in terms of production. But they also owned and operated, well, they didn't own, they contract operated several frac sand mines up, the Northern Whites back in the day.
Why we know it well, yes. I'm actually going to the frac sand conference tomorrow in Houston and speaking.
Are you?
There, yeah.
I've been out of the game for a long, long time, but back then it was really cool because they were operating those on a contract, and they had gotten the contract through like a consult to operate model where like we were acting as like exploration geos for frac sand. And then like once we found the deposit and like developed it, the mining or the oil and gas companies just wanted us to operate it, get the sand on a train and get it down to the basin.
Yep.
And it was really cool because like as we were doing this, those consulting contracts like gave us a really cool window into that industry at the time, which was developing super, super fast. Like
yes.
the Northern Whites were like the creme de la creme.
Yep.
But then during the time I was there over like a 2-year period, they're like, yeah, we don't give a shit about the Northern White Sands quality anymore. We just care about like final mile costs to the wellhead. Right? Like, and it was like, we're willing to sacrifice this level of quality for that level of cost differential. Like, it was awesome. It was really cool stuff.
Lower quality, higher tonnage. It's all Northern White Basin. Yeah. We lived all that. Crystal can run you can give her sand. She can run a sieve analysis, tell you the gradation. She could do sphericity and roundness. Turbidity in our blender at home. Like we did all sorts of stuff. Yeah, we used to, because I've done work in that area in Northern White, and I've proven up a couple deposits there. But most of our work was looking for in-basin sands throughout the western U.S. So Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and we looked at a lot of different deposits, and we actually got 2 different ones pretty close to production. And so I'll actually be talking about that this week and talking about what you said, like that wild shift from Northern White to in-basin and how it became a lot less about quality and a lot more about volume and logistics. And then I'm going to profile, there's actually like several new frac sand mines in the Western US, like standing up now, like in the last couple of
I heard
years.
there's one in the basin here in Utah
There's
that
three
is,
now.
yeah, that's coming online. Yeah, that's
Yeah, there's
super interesting.
three. So
But I
there's,
did the same
yeah,
stuff. Like they started sending us on that consult contract, like, hey, go out to the Bakken. I spent a lot of time in the Bakken.
yeah.
Go out to the Eagleford. Go find us some like sandstone deposits in the Eagleford. And one of my favorites was out. Where the heck were we? We were just west of the Bakken, over the border on the High Line, Montana, and we were looking at surface like sand dune deposits
Yeah.
because your overburden costs were zero.
Yeah.
You could get it right onto a
Just
train or
scoop
even
and
a
wash.
truck at that distance
Just
and
scoop and
send it right
wash.
to the
Yeah.
wellhead.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was really cool. So that was like, oh, I got back into some real geology. That was some cool times. And then I went out to, I was like on the road and got a call like, hey, do you want to go out to Nevada and work on this new Nevada Gold Mines joint venture? And I was like,
Yeah.
all right, that sounds kind of cool. And
Oh, awesome.
I walked into that beast. That was super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I was one of
very.
the first NGM employees officially, not Newmont or Barrick, but that was an interesting time to walk into that and like kind of the Brady Bunch, you know, you're shoving the two companies
Yeah.
together and see what the fallout is. And I spent a lot of years there, like I think 4 years living out of my trailer. And my wife is who I met at field camp.
Oh, wow.
She's a geo for Utah Geological Survey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we couldn't like she couldn't live in Nevada, so I had to do the commute back and forth. I think we did it for 4 years, but during that time I was doing environmental compliance. We did environmental projects like a heap leach expansion, dewatering well installations, kind of getting my feet wet in capital projects, and then ended up working at Cortez, Carlin, doing some material transport projects, underground paste plant, and just kind of developing more capital projects experience. So now that's what I bring to Rio Tinto Regeneration is that capital projects.
Wow.
That kind of brings us today, except CanaryWaves. We have to talk about that still.
We will, yeah. I was going to say that's a good segue. So we'll talk about CanaryWaves, but I think starting with the geology and then learning about the geology and the economic geology, and then in the frac sand, like you get such an exposure to all the economics across the board, like the market, supply, demand, input costs, sales price, all that stuff. And then like working from that into like capital projects and stuff is a really good path because it's not just theoretical numbers in a spreadsheet. You actually know what that stuff looks like in the field, which is super key. Because I work with a lot of the consulting I do personally is like higher level. So I'm usually working with like the CFO or somebody who's like worked at a lot of companies, but they've always been on the financial side. And you can tell like the difference between people who have worked their way up and understand all of it. Like, and which is why like a lot of C-suites and mining companies are stacked with engineers and geologists because they tend to do well understanding it. But it's a good path for sure. Definitely gives
I've
you a
really
lot
enjoyed
of,
it, and it was fun like to start coming out of operations and into like capital projects. And I got my master's in mining engineering from South Dakota School of Mines alongside that, like during my time in Nevada. So I came out of that Nevada experience with like a really nice set of skills, exactly to your point, Stuart. Like how do you kind of like match up the financial with the technical and the operational? Like how do they marry? It's really it's a cool place to be in the industry for sure.
For sure,
Right at the
yeah.
intersection.
Yeah, definitely. Because you understand the geology and then you understand the engineering. And then you can understand the financial part of it. Because at the end of the day, for any kind of economic mining, that's really what matters. Like the geology is interesting, but it's like, does it work for what we need it to do? Is the grade there? Okay. And then the engineering is like, can we mine it effectively?
Yeah, and I gotta say, like my geology skills have atrophied quite a bit over that. Over that origin story. Like they're not what they once were, which is sad to say. But
it
it
happens.
comes
territory,
and
I
goes.
guess.
Yeah, it depends. Like, yeah, it was interesting doing the frac sand, like putting together this presentation and going back 10, 15 years to like all the prospecting we did and everything we looked at and all that, because frac sand's like it was huge and then it totally went away. So I haven't done a lot of it in a few years. So it was interesting to go back, but it comes back. Like looking at the photos and some of my reports and stuff, I could start to read it and it's interesting. But yeah, so good segue into CanaryWaves.
Yeah. So how does CanaryWaves fit into this whole picture?
Yeah, the origin is actually during my time in Nevada in operations. I was at a really, really cool mine site called Long Canyon, which is not far from West Wendover, actually.
Yeah, we know Long Canyon.
Super awesome site. Like
Yes.
I think it's in care and maintenance now. But there were some really cool people doing some really cool stuff. We had super low ASIC.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. But I remember during our time there, super great, like safe site, super awesome operation. One of the only injuries we ever had, but I got called into an incident investigation just as an independent third party, like to review the data. A gentleman had hurt his eye on a pressure washer wand that kicked back too hard, right? And they found out there was like some calibration issues with the tank and it was overheating and overpressurized and all of that. But in that investigation, they bring in, if you've ever been a part of these, they bring in like every piece of data under the sun, right? Like training records, calibration records, it's like video if they've got it. And one of the pieces of data they brought in for this one was the MP3 recording file, audio file of the two-way radio chatter that was going on like before, during, and after the incident, so that they could kind of see what happened, what was the ERT response, and then like how did it kind of settle out. And I remember like even at that time I was struck. I was like, why are we looking at this right now? Like, what if somebody called in this thing kicking back really hard like 3 weeks ago and we could have fixed it then, right?
Right.
And that was like the seed or like the kernel for the idea.
Yeah.
For CanaryWaves, like let's leverage that two-way radio chatter. If we are going to just record it, like let's not have it sit on a server waiting to get called into the investigation. Let's like actually leverage that data. And so I got hooked up with a co-founder on some matching, they have all kinds of matching programs. Guy that had done some industry specific software development. It worked for a little while and we got some good like concepts going and a nice wireframe for like what the UI could look like and what we were going to deliver. And then like, I think he was based in New Zealand or something. So the timing just didn't work out and kept falling apart. So that co-founder like ended up moving on and I was like, oh shoot, like I'm not a software engineer. Like I've got some decent chops like in Python and stuff, but like putting together this conceptual like product is going to be like a super difficult challenge for me. But ended up getting just like a relatively working prototype on some good test data. And then I got back in touch with an old colleague that I had met during my time in aggregates. And she had also developed like some aggregate pricing tools and some industry specific software and had worked through like two different software companies that were, really industry focused. She was like, hey, I'm looking for something new. I was like, hey, you want to help me? And at first she's like, I don't know, maybe, but here's a guy you should go talk to. And I think Julia set in on like 2 or 3 calls. And then eventually was like, I want in, like, let's make this a co-founding agreement. Like, let's go. And she and her team kind of took it from GarageBand to like a real product. And basically now we're set up I think we launched in October and we're going through proof of concept testing right now with different mine sites in operations across the world. I think we have one in Australia. We're talking about a couple in Africa or Zambia, and then a couple here in North America.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's been a good start, but
it's a small
how
world.
It works is yeah, maybe I should answer that.
We know Julia, from
you know Julia?
From doing aggregate pricing and stuff. Yeah. And I never put it together. I remember her leaving to go do something to do with two-way radio chatter and stuff, and I never put it together that it's the same thing.
That was me.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, she's really awesome to work with and a like really nice bulldog to have on calls because she cuts through the BS, right? Yeah. And she tells customers like, hey, look, we can't actually do this right now. Yep. We need to do this, and this. And her technical team is super, super strong.
Yeah.
And they also give us really nice exposure to Europe and some
Yeah.
of the mines over there that are
No,
going to need that help.
absolutely. Yeah, that's really funny. It's a small world, but definitely. And I think she may have mentioned you at some point too when we were talking about something, because we were, doing that stuff, aggregate market, aggregate pricing, stuff
Yeah,
like
because
that. And
we were working at Kramer on that product way back in the day. Shoot, this must have been like 17 or 18, something
wow.
like that.
Yeah.
And she was kind of trying to implement that product over there at that aggregate mine, and because they were doing like 2 million tons a year, just raw product out
Yep.
the door, they needed it. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, tell us a little bit about like how it works and overall
Mm-hmm.
like what it provides and like your elevator pitch. So we kind of.
Yeah, sure. So the software is designed to basically work with um, current mine site two-way radio networks, right? Many of them they've been modernized to do digitization of frequencies, or they're managed with kind of a software platform. Um, Largely, though, the technology is kind of unchanged since the 70s, and so CanaryWaves hopes to kind of help contribute to that solution. Like, how do we bring our two-way radio networks into the modern age? And so we'll hook into any existing APIs that are on site. We can do post-mortem analysis. So if you are recording, but your software doesn't have like an API hook for us to do real-time integration, we can do kind of post-mortem analysis, do some consulting. Hey, look, based on this amount of data, we can provide you this level of analysis about what's happening at your operation. But our goal and our strategy and our roadmap is to kind of be this integrated data layer. Like we got a lot of feedback. I spent a lot of those prototyping years doing market fit and figuring out like what does the industry actually need, and what they
Yeah.
don't need is another dashboard
Right.
for the operations room, right? Like they
Yes.
don't need another dashboard to manage. And so we've done actually most of our work on the back end and very little on the UI, because we could whip up a UI if we needed to, if they
Right.
really wanted that. But really, we'd like for CanaryWaves to kind of act as sort of a translator. Hey, this chatter, this data is coming in, and we're going to do a couple of things. It works in three parts. We're going to denoise that chatter as it comes in, because it's really scratchy audio, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to run automatic speech recognition, ASR, and
Yep.
some of the machine learning models around that are quite robust.
They're so good at that now. Yeah.
Yeah, they're built for this kind of communication.
Yeah.
They're not built for two-way radio, so that's the first part.
Yeah.
And then loading those ASRs with site-specific pronouns, and then mining industry vernacular, very site-specific, very industry-specific, to ensure that audio can be captured and that context is captured. And then once we have the automatic speech recognition run through and we have a transcript file of text, then we're going to run multiple LLMs, also preloaded with site data or site situations or contexts from the previous analyses, to really develop key insights, trends, potential triggers or safety hazards, and deliver those to decision makers on site. And some of the coolest stuff we've seen in the early test work is like, initially it was a safety tool, but we're also seeing like huge operational inefficiencies that we're able to capture and contextualize, right? Like,
oh yeah,
we don't just capture like that there was 14 seconds of hang time.
Yeah.
We can actually tell why there was 14 seconds of hang times based on like what was called at the time. So it provides a lot of context into that KPI data that's already been captured by the fleet management system or whatever.
Yeah, traffic issues, delays at different points. Yeah, loading, unloading.
That's like, fascinating.
There's all sorts of, because it's funny you were talking about the data you're collecting and analysis, and at first I was thinking safety because that's obvious application. And then I was like, oh man, but there's all these other things like.
Oh yeah.
If somebody's constantly they're constantly getting delayed at a certain point, and it may not be picked up on something else, or it's another layer of validation for data that may be collected somewhere else.
And that's really long term. Like that's where we would like to go as we hook into this real time integration, and we're analyzing data in real time as it comes in. What we'd like to do is offer APIs on the back end that can communicate with the site's fleet management system, whether it's MineSense or MineStar or whatever, as well as like the SAP work order management system, right? So if somebody blows a hydraulic line and they call that in, now we can ping SAP and say, hey, if you don't have this hydraulic line, order it, and let's do a draft work order and save ourselves, our operator in the maintenance shed, 15 minutes of filling this out, reduce that downtime.
Yeah.
And every minute of downtime reduced is several $100, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the goal.
And less paperwork. I mean, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, and the context data too, because like these guys, like they name things, different bays have different names, different crushers have different names, different stockpiles have different names.
Larry's Corner, like all kinds of the 10% in Kennecott, the 10%. If you just say the 10% with no context, it means nothing. But in the context of Kennecott, that's like your main superhighway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We had an interesting conversation. We had David Boardman on the show, and his whole thing, and he works in the aggregate world, but he's kind of spread out to mining. But his whole like theory is he's got this company, Every Point, and he thinks every point of data on the planet will eventually be digitized. And so he wanted to be part of it. So he started with stockpiles. So he's got an app you can buy in the App Store. You can scan a stockpile, give you volumes and stuff. But we had an interesting conversation about how just like what everybody calls their stockpiles is different everywhere. And there's no standardization at all. And it's like, that's interesting context to have, and it's key, but that's really cool. Yeah, it sounds like tons of potential. Like you may just be scratching the iceberg with the safety angle. There could be a lot of other stuff, but I think that's a good entry point into the market because, as you know, like technology adaptation in mining is generally slow, and they're very cautious and slow about it, but they tend to have a little more tolerance and a little more open mind when it comes to safety things. And so I think that's a good in. And then once they're used to using the data and see the value, then like you can roll out all sorts of other stuff.
That's kind of how we initially strategized the product placement is like, hey, look, we obviously, as you said, like it's an obvious like initial entry point just to develop the product.
Yeah.
But then once we realized it was like, it went beyond safety, it's like, we still want to like kind of enter through the safety approach because it is a good entry point into the market and onto sites. And that's kind of been where we see the most value and the most enthusiasm right now is at the site level. Like we could go and call, the CEOs and this chief technology officers or whoever a lot of times. And I've seen this like at the majors, like at Rio Tinto, there could be a lot of enthusiasm at the C-suite level or even the senior leadership level, but a lot of times it gets lost in translation by the time it gets down to the site, and the enthusiasm may not be matched. In fact, there could be hostility when you're going to try to implement or integrate at site if you don't have that relationship built with the operation. And so we've elected to kind of try to make our relationships and establish our relationships at site first, and get some champions within the organization, whichever organization we're working with, and hopefully try to kind of come from a bottom-up approach. We'll do both, of course, but that's been where we've seen some good success.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Get the operations involved because they're going to be the ones using it, and I think if C-suite comes in, it might feel like a little overreaching at times.
Yeah, and if you've got like your sales process. If you've got case studies at their own operations where you can be like, what's the ROI of a life saved? I mean, obviously, like you can't calculate it on like the value of life perspective without going down a whole philosophical path. But like to a company where all of the executive bonuses are tied to a safety record, it's really great to have a case study and say, we think we saved a life here.
Already.
And then they're like, all of your bonuses are hanging on that. We just saved your bonuses for the quarter. That's a very measurable, very real way to approach it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's nice to do it at the operational level, like Chris was saying, because like those are the guys and gals that are actually solving your problems, and they're doing it over the radio. It's just you don't know it yet.
Yeah,
and that's kind of our like fun little side pitch. I think I posted it on LinkedIn the other day. Like, we're not going to solve CanaryWaves is not going to solve your problem. Your operators are already solving the problem. We're just giving you the tool to listen to them.
Yeah. So, in terms of the volume of data, it's hard to think about, but at an operation like Kennecott size, how many hours of radio chatter would you have to process daily?
So we're actually running our early proof of concepts on 750 audio hours. So generally speaking, like, and that's like a month's worth of data. So
Wow.
generally speaking, like if you have a particular problem that you want to solve with a month's worth of data, we can take like a week out of this quarter, a week out of this quarter, whatever, build up a month's worth of data. And the like 750 hours equates to basically your 24-hour operation,
Yeah.
constantly running that audio file. Now, only a percentage of that is actually going to be radio calls, right?
Right.
It's just an empty file.
Yeah.
But it does turn out to be several gigabytes on a per shift basis.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's quite a bit of data. Like I think a single 12-hour audio file shift is like, I think it was like 6 gigs or something.
Wow.
That's quite large.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of it's like dead space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then, CanaryWaves eats it up, parses it into little like individual radio calls, and
Yeah.
then it uses the context to like categorize those radio calls and out of the box, it comes with different categories like ops and safety and maintenance and
Yeah.
environmental general calls. And then it'll kind of deliver those insights based on those categories. But we can customize the categories to whatever the customer wants, really.
That's super cool.
That is very fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting applications there and stuff to think about. Um, yeah,
Well, it's neat because you could take that same concept to other industries. I mean, it doesn't need to stay in mining.
no.
Anywhere.
Crystal, you're
Didn't say
giving
anything,
you're
didn't
giving
say
away
anything.
my growth plan.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, we won't give it
that's
away,
exactly
but
right.
yeah,
We've
absolutely.
gotten some calls from folks in maritime trade, from military, from law enforcement. Like, I mean, over the road trucking, even like you name it. If they're doing two-way radio, like there's probably some insights or problems or things that we can do to help solve for that industry. We just wanted to start in mining because that's where we've buttered our bread for the last 15 years, right? So
Yeah.
we know it. We know the problems. Spent the last, 6 years trying to come up with the product market fit.
Yeah,
Once we get it right, then maybe, we'll move into something that has two-way radio problem. Oil and gas is a natural
yeah,
kind of shift over there, pipeline laying and stuff like this. But
yeah.
that's on our mind for
Very
sure.
That's
cool.
cool.
Very cool.
No, I love it. That's great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
you always want to have the next progression of your business outlined.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Very cool. Well, I think that's an episode. I think we're
Excellent. We did it. Bye, guys.